Welcome everyone to this exclusive interview with Tukwini and Mikey Mandela of the House of Mandela, coming from San Francisco, California's Singularity University's Global Summit. Thank you for being with me today.
Thank you, Kevin.
So, Tukwini, we'll start off with you. What brings you both to Singularity University's Global Summit?
Well, my mom and I run a couple of different companies that are based on innovation, and we're always looking for new ways to do things. We also have a foundation that really focuses on food security. So we thought it would be an interesting visit to come and see, what the Singularity University has to offer. My mom and I have read quite a bit on Singularity, so we thought that this would be an interesting platform to give us new ideas around how we innovate within our own company, but also how we look at ways of creating food security for the people that we serve in our communities in South Africa.
And when I read about Singularity University, I thought I had an idea about it. I thought I knew kind of what was going to be here.
Yeah.
But until you start talking to these people, my mind's just been blown this entire week. What are some of the takeaways that you both have been able to take away from all these extraordinary ideas in innovation and AI? What are some of the things that you've been able to take away from this conference, would you say?
I think just the ability to think differently, right?
Yeah, totally.
Because if you're in a working environment and you're doing the same thing every day, that's what occupies your mind.
Right.
So in our talks with Tammy, just the ability to look at situations differently, and you might find different solutions. And some of those situations may not necessarily be something that you're comfortable with, that you're used to doing on your daily life. So Mama and I are here to explore. We only arrived yesterday, so we're going to explore a little bit more and really see what this singularity thing is all about in real time.
And you hit the nail around the head with innovation too. And Africa is full of entrepreneurs and innovative technologies, and it's also facing a lot of problems. Mikey, you were talking to me earlier about some of the problems that Africa faces. Could you tell our audience, kind of from your experience, what you know about Africa, its resources, and what the House of Mandela is doing about it?
I think, look, I am an African, born and bred in Africa. I think that the challenges that we faced are basically the fact is lack of resources in terms of technology. And I think that one of the things that is beautiful about Singularity and the Global Summit is that it's bringing together specialists in technology in different areas, whether it's in medicine, it's in agriculture, food production, whether it's in teaching applications. And I think those are the things that Africa needs. Remember that Africa is still lagging far behind in terms of the digital economy or nanotechnology per se. But I think that these technologies so far for us are very expensive, so there's limited access to Africa. Although I would say that in terms of mobile technology, there's been a high level of penetration, so that farmers use the mobile to actually look at the prices on the markets and able to price their goods. And I think that the technology so far has opened access wide for Africa to use the various social platforms to actually promote their goods. And so they've been able to reach a larger audience besides their own individual countries. But Africa does face a lot of challenges in terms of, we have serious grinding poverty, we have serious unemployment, we have governments that are not really as effective in terms of promoting wealth and promoting social justice and better life for all. We have those challenges. And, we need to look at how technology can help us to override, to address those problems. And I think Singularity University is about using technology to create a better world. So what are the opportunities here that can be adapted to Africa's conditions? unique conditions.
Absolutely, I totally agree. And
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to interview Akon, the former songwriter and singer
Yes.
producer, and he's doing incredible work in Africa right now, sub-Saharan Africa to be specific. But he was saying, the governments are corrupt over there in the sense that the people don't pay taxes, and that there's for a reason basically. So what he's done is he's done a couple of initiatives in Africa, sustainable energy, as well as cryptocurrency. It excites me. What excites you the most?
I think for me, my focus is really on the issue of food security, because all of us want to eat and want to eat healthy food with nutrients. And I think for me, because Africa has always been mostly a subsistence economy, where we depend on what is produced out of the land. And so for me, my heart is on creating innovative teaching farms, where you can teach people how to use technology to actually benefit food planting and food cropping, and produce food that has all the nutrients that it has to benefit society.
And that's a really good point, because in order to grow crops, you need water. And water is a big issue right now, not only in South Africa, but around the entire planet. In fact, I think it's like 90% of fresh water is used for agriculture. Tukwini, can you explain to our audience what maybe you're facing in South Africa right now, and what solutions you've kind of come across?
I mean, I'll give you a simple example of, we had a drought in South Africa, in certain parts of South Africa. So in Cape Town, we had an issue where because we didn't have all the seasonal rains that we usually get, we had a serious drought. So the question is, how do you harvest water to make sure that future generations have water in order to do all of these things that we do on a daily basis, right? So things that people would have taken for granted, like taking a shower, brushing your teeth, were difficult.
Right.
So and with South Africa, we have the benefit of the Indian Ocean. So the questions were, what are the things that we're doing to harvest water from the sea, for example? What are the things that we're doing in terms of sanitation, of cleaning up our sanitation? So it's all of those things that we really, really have to consider in South Africa. We have unique challenges in Africa, but I'm excited by the fact that we have so much talent with young people, and they're coming up with all these different innovations. It would be great to have them at an event like this, to come and learn how they harness all of that, right? So they have all of these ideas, but they don't necessarily have an outlet to make sure that those ideas come to fruition. So a place like Singularity would really, really help them to harness all of that energy, to harness all of that knowledge, and come up with solutions that could benefit Africa in the near future.
Interesting. And speaking of the drought, climate change, I think is on track to create like 150 million refugees by 2050. It's outrageous, and a lot of that goes back to that gender equality issue in terms of like females and mothers and little girls that don't have identities. Is this a problem that's happening? I don't know if it is in South Africa or not, but is this something that you're looking into?
I think when you look at Africa, I think we have more female-headed households in Africa, and so which means that females are in the majority, and so we need to actually empower women with all kinds of skills. And so the question is, how can we use technology, innovations in technology, to actually empower women in different ways? So I think that the gender, most of Africa, with a few countries, is much more of a patriarchal system, and so we need to change. We need to have conversations about that, and the issue is, can we use the technology advance to benefit women in terms of the work that they do, whether it's in the household, whether it's in their farms, whether it is providing food for their children at a cost-effective way, and whether, because I know now there are innovations in which, in terms, and that's why I like agriculture and the issue of food security. You don't need a lot of land to produce food, and you don't need there are innovations in terms of, you don't need a lot of water to be able to to grow the seed. And so those need to be accessible to a larger population, except, not just the privileged few.
The thing that excites me and also worries me about technology is that I feel like as our culture becomes more connected online, we're also becoming disconnected in some ways. And I also feel like technology throughout the history of time has also like erased some cultures and just like the uniqueness of a culture in terms of everyone being on social media now, everyone being on the same platforms and doing the same things and just being the same people.
Yeah.
But we're not, we're different. How important is it to preserve the cultures as technology progresses?
We're actually just talking about this over lunch.
Oh, really?
And my mom and I have completely different views. She was talking about how the loss of human contact for her is, it's really worrying.
Right. Yeah.
Because I have a nephew, for example, who plays video games all day, right? So, at some point I have to say to him, listen, stop with the video games, go play outside, go talk to your cousins, or
just like my roommates.
Yeah, arrange a play date or something. So I think that there's a lot of benefits to technology in terms of human connection, in the sense that if it's harnessed properly, right, it can be a generator of all these great ideas, right? And you can change the world through it. But at the same time, there's this dark side of it, right, where children are getting exposed to things that they shouldn't necessarily see at their ages. So the question is, how do we? And I don't necessarily think that tech should be government regulated fully, completely. But I think that we need to find ways of using tech to harness or to increase, human connections, for example, because some people are not able to do that. The only way that they can possibly be able to do it is through tech. So we have to find ways of how we still keep that human connection, but still, do positive things in the world. But
I don't necessarily agree with my daughter.
Yes.
Well, that's fine.
And I think for me, there'll always be, technology cannot replace the human touch.
Yeah.
Right.
That connection, I think, is very, very important. And I think that the negative effects of technology are really as a result of people being alienated from their families, from their friends, from community. There's no longer a sense of community. There's this community which is an invisible community on the web. And I don't think that's a healthy way to create a better world and to create better society. And as you say, all this new technology, if you look at especially social media and how it affects culture, I think that there is a danger, because I think all of us, I'm a great believer that heritage matters and culture matters, because this is where you are formed, this is what you are shaped, this is where your values, your principles in life come from. And so if these are stripped, then what society are we created? Are we creating a society of individuals that are alienated from everything except this machine? I don't think that's a healthy world. But at the same time, I do think we cannot stop progress. And technology is about progress.
Yeah.
But I think that we have to be careful in terms of using this technology for good and making sure that, and for me, that's why I think government regulation of technology and the social media, I think, is imperative because of the effects that we have seen in terms of how people with evil intent have used it really for negative and for basically evil consequences. And I really do think we have to counter that and have it to be used for social good.
But the regulation for me comes in how that technology is used. It's not necessarily to say,
Sure.
to regulate how people communicate with each other, because I don't believe in that. I believe that there are benefits to tech. Education, for example, you can reach children far and wide who may not necessarily have the access
Right.
to those resources. I believe women in the rural areas can have access to tech. When they have access to tech, they can do so many things to generate income for themselves. So while I agree with my mother up to a certain point, I do think that we've moved beyond certain things. That we're in an age where people communicate with each other through computer, phone, email, or whatever you call it. But I think that if you can harness those things positively, then we can do so many good things with it. And not to say that we negate the negative stuff that's actually happening, online.
I completely agree with both of you, actually. In Tukwini, Mike, it's been a pleasure physically speaking with you today, not in some
pleasure.
invisible community.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because it is odd that people are playing online with people I don't know. And it is odd when I travel to Indonesia that I can have a similar conversation with somebody from another country.
Yes.
And so, yes, it's pros and cons to everything. But, this does take vision. This takes a lot of debate and a lot of questioning, a lot of traits of some leaders.
Yes.
So Mike, I'll leave this one to you. What is your definition of a real leader?
I think for me, a definition of a real leader is a person who leads by example, who is the servant of the people, who is a person who has a vision of the future, and actually realize that we can attain that future by creating a unity of purpose. I believe that's a real leader.
Well, I believe it is too, and I believe you two are as well. So for Tukwini and Mikey Mandela, I'm Kevin Edwards saying thank you for tuning in to this special edition of Real Leaders Live, coming from Singular University's Global Summit in San Francisco, California. Thank you both for your time.
Thank you very much, Kevin.